Hello, everybody, and my name is Freebie Wits. I'm here to take you on a little guided tour of the tabletop RPG system, cards, paper, action that I made myself. Hence why it's called a meta tabletop card based role playing game by Freebie Wits. That's me as a quick reminder. So, I made this with the full intention of making it a Power Rangers Super Sentai type game. Uh, Everybody had their roles and such. And it started life as something a bit different, and then it turned into that, and then it turned into this, and they're all very separate things. So think of this as a director's commentary as such. Now, to begin with, the front page. None of these characters were things I created for this book specifically, for this rule set. These are pre-existing characters that I made, and they all have some interesting stories behind them, and you can probably tell I'm a fan of Kamen Rider. So the guy on the left-hand side, um, his name is Hiroshi Kota, and the idea behind him, he was in another person's custom homebrew tabletop RPG called Break. And the idea behind this character is that he merged with his mech called Shield Knight and became this thing. And he's kind of dead. But I can't remember how old I was. I'm pretty sure I was a teenager at the time when this was happened, and this was all online over text. And I remember specifically it was 1 a.m. for me whenever the games played. There were only like 5, maybe 6 games in total, and I just remember being very tired. My reading comprehension was shot to hell, but I enjoyed it well enough because I played with giant mecha, and I'm a big fan of mecha. The guy on the right hand side, his name is just Ryder. And if I remember correctly, he was made for a friend's Fate's Day Night homebrew game. Once again, I'm not sure if it was actually homebrew or not, but the idea behind this character is that he's a blank canvas. For those of you who know about Fate's Day Night, each hero that's summoned is a famous person from history, fictional, not sometimes, usually not fictional, at least in the context of the actual universe itself, because we all know that King Arthur didn't really exist. They were a fictional character, but King Arthur in that universe was a thing. Anyway, so this guy was the actual template come to life. And the idea behind him and his gimmick was that he could take his master and get his master to turn into him, because anybody who's heroic enough can be a rider or common rider. It's the idea that anybody could be behind the mask. So I made his design as generic as I possibly could. Biker helmet, mask, suit of armor, gloves, boots. You get the idea. Now the guy in front, and I feel like a dumbass nowadays for it. His name is Bone Lord. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I kind of owned it after I made him, and he was originally for a online role playing game, forum post by post, and the idea behind him is that his player, it it was set in a sort of dot hack slash what was it called, swordcraft, sword art, yeah, sword art online type world where people played MMORPGs. It was like a full dive sort of VR situation, and the character named Hiroshi Kota, which shares the name of this shield guy on the left. I was I was not very good at coming up with original names. Hiroshi Kota had a character named uh, Bone Lord, and he was basically a sort of vigilante type Kamen Rider superhero with rock and air powers. So you see the rock fist he's got, and his wind powers allowed him to jump high and kick and all that sort of thing. About what you expect out of a Kamen Rider, really. And he just liked having the skeleton motif because I was a teenager and I thought it was cool. I mean, I kind of still do, and I like his ponytail. Always enjoyed it. So, in the introduction, I'll read this for you. Welcome to Cards, Paper, Action, tabletop card-based game that aims to give a cinematic, freeform yet structured role-playing experience. While it's recommended that this system is played with the superhero genre in mind, creative directors and players can repurpose this system for whatever they want. Speaking of directors, the main gimmick that sets this system apart from many others is the fact that it's all played like a movie, TV show, or theater play. The players take the role of actors who then play the characters. Any inconsistencies in the story, any narratively convenient event, or other oddity can be put down to poor writing in universe, a reshoot of the scene, or flashbacks to explain how certain items had come into a character's possession. Just like a plot in movies or a story in a book, events shown to the audience don't have to be linear. While the art, rules, and text have mostly been done by myself, much of the inspiration comes from a wide variety of sources, including TV shows, books, role-playing games, and of course my friends who have helped test the system. To them, I want to say thank you. You know who you are. So with that all said, might I just say the following: cards, paper, action. So, originally I mentioned that this game had originally started as something different, and originally it was part of a D&D game I played, more specifically Mass Battle. Now, Mass Battle can be very difficult to pull off, and once it gets to a certain scale, it can be very abstract. So my players being the players they were, there was a part of a D&D campaign where the world was going to end, so they had to gather a bunch of armies and different factions to basically fight an evil army. And to represent their advantages, I allowed them to play certain cards like blackjack. Depending on what they faced and what advantages they themselves had, I, as a DM, would play less or more cards to challenge them with. It was very enjoyable, and it worked so well that I decided to turn that bit of homebrew ruling into a homebrew rule set. And I will post links in the description about this rule set. We'll not go too deep into it. I just want to run over bits and pieces of it, specifically the art. So this little bit of art comes from my own fan fiction. It's a crossover fan fiction called, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, Soul Survivor Without a Radioactive Wasteland to Roam. And it is a sequel to another fanfic I wrote, and the idea is that it's a crossover between Fallout 4 and Worm, the superhero genre, not superhero online novel. And the idea is that it's Worm, and one of the characters has literal Fallout 4 video game powers, as in it has all the jankiness. If you jump in water, no matter your height, you will survive. You can craft stuff in literally a nanosecond if you have the right tools and stuff for it. You know, that sort of thing. So literal superpowers. And I played it straight. I didn't make anyone go, oh my god, you're a video game character. It's more, you have the ability to survive great heights when falling, and you still take damage, but you won't die immediately if you're hit in the head, sort of thing. I try to play it as straight as possible. The green guy is, if you've read Worm, you'll know who I'm talking about. The green big guy in the suit of armor, that's Colin Wallace, Arms Master, or in this specific story, he's named Renegade. Over here in the blue, that's Danny, or he's called shoot, what was he called? Vigor. His name was Vigor. That's right. His superhero name was Vigor. This is Circus. This is Bakuda, and this is Purity. Who spoiler? You know what? I won't spoil the story, but I like where it goes. I'm pretty proud of how Soul Survivor ended, honestly. And then there was a sequel trilogy without save files to abuse. It's, as of making this video, the actual fanfic isn't done. I've had plans for it for a long time, and I'm kind of sad that I don't have much time to write it all. Okay, here's another bit of art from the fanfiction thingy that I made. This is from the same universe where I got these guys from. So I mentioned Soul Survivor was a sequel. It was a sequel to this story, A Dovahkiin Without Dragon Souls to consume, I think. No, Dragon Souls to spend. That's how it was called. So over here's Vista. That's how I imagined her powers working. She can squeeze or extend distances. Over here is Vim. So Vim and Vigor. I really like that pun. Out back over there, the Iron Man looking kid. That is Kid Win. Over here is Aegis in the red. Shadow Stalker. Gallant in the night outfit. And over here is Clock Blocker. Now, in the book, it mentioned that Clock Blocker and Aegis swapped costumes at one point. And that Clock Blocker in the actual canon doesn't have a mask that looks like a clock like this, but I decided to do it because I thought it looked better that way and funnier. Now over here, these three characters, they were made for TG. I wanted to run a quest on TG. It just never really went anywhere. I don't know if it's because there were not that many people playing at the time or what reading the thing on 4chan TG at the time, or maybe it was just because I had really poor writing. Whatever the case, I still ended up drawing them. And if you look on their masks, it kind of tells you who they are. So this would have been Kamen Rider TG, and his whole gimmick is he has a dice on his belt, and depending on how high it is, the more damage he does. This is before Kamen Rider Beast was a thing, so I accidentally sort of predicted that. Over here, we have Kamen Rider M. Instead of a 20-sided dice on his belt, he has a 6-sided dice, and he tells everybody he's not a mecha. Inside joke once again. And over here we have Kamen Rider GM. He has a D4 on his belt, and he would have been the sort of evil character who's also a Kamen Rider. That was his sort of gimmick. So moving along. Here's Bone Lord / Hiroshi Kota all over again, and I just remembered that Kota's in-game MMO handle, like username, was Dude Bro. And I was very proud of this drawing as well. This was one of the first colored drawings I made, because before then I was mostly doing black and white stuff, so I was very happy with the shading and such of that. The leg's a bit awkward, but otherwise, I think it's good. A lot of the optional rules you'll see here, and once again, you can read it in full at your own leisure in when you check it out yourself in the description. But a lot of these optional rules were part of the original rules when I first made this. Finances, popularity, they were all stats. Popularity was more or less the hit points for the entire game, not just the plays, but for the whole game. So the players were essentially playing as the studio rather than just the characters. I kind of changed that over time, so it's more like a universal pool now. Finance sort of took over the role of popularity as hit points, as it were. Hence why it says the production grinds to a halt. A lot of this was influenced by... Oh shoot, I don't know what it's called. There's a Power Rangers-esque RPG that you can play on Steam. Super Deca Squad or something. I'll think of it some other time, but it's made by the same guys who made Knights of the Pen and Paper. It's pretty good fun. Very simplistic, but good fun. And then I've had examples of play, which was suggested by one of my players, because without playing the game, he was not sure how to play the game. And he said it would have been quicker for him to pick up on it if I had a page like this. In fact, one of the examples, role-playing as the actor, was directly inspired by one of my players who basically exploded in character as the diva. It was glorious. If I remember correctly, I was trying to introduce the scene by having all the characters in a helicopter, and then she just went, "No, this scene is dumb. We shouldn't have to land where we should already be on the ground," sort of thing. I'm like, oh, That's amazing. And all players, it just clicked for everyone what this sort of game was about. So instead of having the helicopter fly by everything, I just had the briefing happen with the in-game boss and such like that. It's like, oh, here's the town, here are the different areas. This is what you can do. Go for it. And these are the changes. I don't know. This is just sort of a habit I have. I just like writing, and it helps gather my thoughts. But the final thing is, my word, that's impressive. So the player who suggested the examples of play, is the one who came up with this little what do you call it? Catchphrase. His character was called the Chromatic Chameleon, and his catchphrase was, "My word, that's impressive." So I decided to add that in. It was a very popular thing that they had. Anyways, thank you for listening to my little behind the scenes uh, talk about cards, paper, action. Check it out in the description. Give it a go. Tell me how it went if you decide to play it with your players. And have fun.